What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name, of course, is Patrick Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host, the biggest Charli XCX fan I personally know, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how's it going, man?
Charlie, baby. It's always Charlie time. Very exciting. But yeah, good to be back. Dying in Valhalla soon. The Northman gloriously released this past weekend as well.
What does Dead Men Never Die? We're going to be talking about the Northman, Charli XCX, Pusha T album, lots of TV, another movie. So hit that subscribe if you're listening or watching on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Also go to Spotify and give us 5 stars there because it helps, you know, you want to support us. I know you do. Dave, we're going to start though. I'm going to pass you the rock because last Wednesday you were texting me. You were watching those Charli ticket prices and you're debating, do I want to go? Do I want to make this happen? And ultimately you pulled the trigger. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Went to the Crash tour stop in Boston, Charli XCX ongoing tour last week. There's a tour that I had kind of resigned myself to perhaps not going because I had waited in the Ticketmaster line back when this all went on sale and got just screwed by a lag and server crashing and got screwed out of Charli XCX tickets, which is, you wouldn't ascribe that level of demand to Charli the way you expose to like other pop stars on national tours. Not what I expected to have her buying her tickets be a huge challenge, but she is selling out this entire tour. So I guess it's not completely unexpected, but I think that's also the perks of living really close to a venue where you can really play that secondary market to the last minute and wait for price drops. So even though I spent, 2.5 times as much as I would have if I actually had bought them from Ticketmaster, I nonetheless still got to go. And it was really cool to be in like a sold out show and see Charli for the first time in a small venue like House of Blues Boston, 1,000-person venue. So it's really close, really small. And even though she doesn't have a number one album in the US, she has one top 10 album here. She has doesn't have platinum song. She's not like a super A-lister as a performer. Obviously her songwriting gets there, but for songwriting for other people, even though she's not like at that status, she still has this rabid fan base. And it was really cool to be in that room with that energy and just to see that, where even if you aren't the top of the A-list, you can still be incredibly successful. And I think that was what immediately struck me about just being in that room and being around all these people that knew the words to all of the songs off Crash, an album that had only come out a few weeks ago. And it was a great time. I think the set design, even for a small venue, pretty cool. It was like this like staircase with like this ramp in there. And Charli, I think, brought what we had kind of been seeing from everything that was rolled out with the Crash album and the music videos, namely that she's doing choreography and dancing full time in her performance for the first time with this tour and with the videos for this album. And that's definitely a change. But she had 2 background dancers with her, and she was doing all this varied choreography for like almost all of the songs, honestly. And that's definitely a change. And I think if there's one criticism I would have is that there are times when she kind of has to rely on the backing track a bit when it's like the intense choreography, which is not uncommon for a lot of vocalists that are doing like hardcore dancing and performance. And I'm sure it's something that will continue to improve as she does more of this performance with choreography moving forward. Obviously, it is new for her, but yeah, I just had a really good time because she just has a lot of great songs, and again, everyone in the room really dug all those songs, and she even, I think, livened up songs that aren't nearly as energetic in their studio form. A song like "Party for You" off "How I'm Feeling Now," which is auto-tuney song, that was like really fun live. And even New Shapes off Crash, the one with Christine the Queens and Carolyn Polachek, like I don't even like love that song that much, but like that song rocked when she performed it and kind of changed my opinion on the song a little bit. it's always really cool to kind of have that experience when the live performance brings something different or slightly new to music you already know. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
always really appreciate when those live versions hit different. It just adds something.
totally, totally. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's no secret that like Charlie XCX's fan base, the Angels, like it's very LGBT friendly, and that was on full display at her show. It was really cool to be in that room and just see tons of happy people, happy being who they are. And Charlie, of course, plays into that full blast. She's, selling like douches at the merch table, for example. But even like when she's about to perform one of her biggest hits, Boys, she dedicates it to all the gay boys, quote unquote, to use her exact phrasing. That was fun too. But yeah, I was kind of surprised actually. Her closing track, her last track after coming out for the what do you call it, the encore, was Good Ones, actually, lead single off Crash. I wouldn't peg that as her biggest or most popular song, but that was actually what she closed with. And right before that, she did Unlock It off Pop 2, which is probably the true closer. But I think like starting off the encore, she comes back out and does Vroom Vroom. Of course, her viral hit that really kind of propelled the critical reevaluation of her career back when that came out. Coming out to Vroom Vroom and performing that and not actually dancing for that, and just kind of like rapping that song as it goes. And again, seeing everyone super hyped for a weird ass hyper pop song like Vroom Vroom, just a cool experience. So yeah, definitely happy I was able to swing those tickets and go because they were clearly in hot demand. But also, it's a small venue show. You got to take advantage of those kind of opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, I was wondering because you mentioned that she played "Party for You." How many
Mhm.
songs from "How I'm Feeling Now" did she play? Because that was a pandemic album that she obviously didn't get to tour for.
Yeah, and other than "Party for You," there's there weren't too many others. None that I can remember. My favorite song off that album, "I Finally Understand," she did not play. So yeah, I think for the most part she kind of jumped around, but didn't really hit that album too much, which I guess kind of makes sense because a lot of that does kind of clash with what's going on with
Yeah,
Crash. Also, she didn't play her Iconopop feature big hit, "I Don't Care, I Love It," which is a song she's actually kind of disowned. Honestly, doesn't really jive with the lyrics, so she did not play that one. But I think nevertheless, there's still a lot of like bangers. 1999, huge hit. Used to Know Me off the new record, huge hit. Unlock It was probably the biggest hit I would say overall. But yeah, it was a blast.
seeing Dua just a few weeks back, and then seeing Charlie,
Mhm.
I think different in terms of type of music, but similar in terms of like production, choreography. I mean, obviously Dua's got a much bigger budget for
Yeah,
her choreography. How would you compare the two shows?
right. So I think the Dua concert was such a long time coming with all the pandemic delays that when you see the Future Nostalgia tour, it's just so precise in its
Mm,
choreography, in its planning, that it just feels so like professional and like tuned up, and it was great. And it's not that Charlie's not professional, but I think she just kind of carries a natural edge to her because that's just like how she handles her artistry. Not that like Dua Lipa's completely sanded down, but like that was an arena tour. It's inevitably going to feel different than a theater room tour. So,
yeah, for sure.
but
All
still
right.
good.
Well, I'm glad that you got to see her, Dave. I'm glad you decided to buy those tickets. And I'm glad we got to talk about Charlie again because she's an artist worth talking about all the time. Why don't we move forward to another artist that I enjoy talking about? Pusha T dropping "It's Almost Dry." We've known this album's coming for a little bit. Music dropping in early January, mid January, Paris Fashion Week. We got the Lana Del Rey picture with the cocaine on the
I
face.
wish that was the album cover.
It should have been for sure, but it's better than the album cover that he ended up going with. But neither here nor there. Um, and now the album's finally here. Push. I think what stood out to me was Push really was between two producers for this album, Kanye West and Pharrell Williams. Pharrell obviously heavily linked with Clips back in the
Yes.
day, produced many of their albums. Kanye and Push have produced a lot of music in recent years. Daytona, most recently before this, and I think in some ways having these two kind of anchoring the production was uh, cool to hear, but also a bit jarring in terms of how the album flowed for me at times. Still, really loved this album. Found it to be super enjoyable. I want to talk about some of the moments I liked and some things that maybe I would have done differently, but I want to hear from you. Did It's Almost Dry live up to your expectations, what you're hoping for?
Oh yeah, it totally did. And I mean, there was a lot of anticipation just for another Pusha T solo album because it's been almost about a month away from 4 years since Daytona came out in May 2018. And yeah, I think like you said, it is really exciting that this is produced evenly between Pharrell Williams and Kanye West because Pharrell, as part of the Neptunes, really represents Clips Pusha T to a T. Clips literally signed to the Neptunes back in the day, produced all of those two Clips albums. And then Kanye really represents all of solo Pusha T that we came to know in the 2010s and beyond. And it is interesting to contrast the two production styles on It's Almost Dry between these two obviously legendary producers. And I got to say, I was really happy with what Pharrell gave us on It's Almost Dry, just because Pharrell, I think, can be a bit up and down, you know, year over year in what he's giving you, just kind of his production style. But definitely some of the more memorable Pharrell beats I've heard in some time. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it because even though Pusha T, yes, he didn't reinvent the wheel. Yes, yes, it's still Pusha T on his narco shit. We know what
Yeah.
he's talking about, but he talks about it so well,
Yeah.
and he still finds new ways to tell us the things he's told us before that it still hits. And I think there's a lot of interesting implications that the last track on this album suggests about the future of Pusha T and his music career. But nonetheless, it's almost dry. It's just another entry in I think like the second half of Pusha's solo career where he really came into his own, voice and bravado, and uh, just a really awesome artist.
Yeah. When I was listening to him, I was thinking of that Kanye line from "Breathe In, Breathe Out" when he's like, "Now I'm just rapping about money, hoes, and rims again," and it's just like Pusha T is like that line in like the biggest sense of the word, where he's almost admitted that, yeah, I just rap about the same shit all the time, but I just make it sound really good and I play
Yeah,
the same audience and everybody just still loves it. And like, honestly, good for him. Like, he just knows who he is and he knows what he wants to talk about and he just does it. It's great.
yeah. The pure snow we sell in white privilege. Never heard that before. Fucking amazing. you know?
Amazing.
But yeah, I mean, Pusha T is not the most introspective guy, and there's like bits
No.
and pieces on this, and honestly, that's more than you're
Mhm.
used to getting from Pusha. But again, it's totally okay. He does what he wants to do, and what he wants to do is still always at a really high level. Especially because I think Kanye, but especially Pharrell, were really up on their game with this one, and also I
Yes.
think Pusha T, and who knows exactly how much is influenced by Pharrell and Kanye as well. But Pusha T really seems to have like learned from with Daytona and It's Almost Dry that he's a less is more guy on every song. These are not long tracks. They are, barely ever 16 bars, 18 bars. It's really less than that almost always. Like he's getting in and getting out, honestly, on all of these songs. And I saw some people suggest that perhaps that's because he was used to making half a song as part of a duo in clips. And that's why he just doesn't write full, three verse songs like other people do, who can say. But again, he knows his strengths and he sticks to them.
Yeah. And like you said, he still finds ways to say things. I mean, he's the what, drug dealing Dr. Seuss, or the cocaine Dr. Seuss.
Cocaine
Like,
Dr. Seuss.
just
Perfect.
ridiculous stuff, but just hilarious. Um, yeah, and you keep mentioning how much you really enjoyed what we got from Pharrell on this, and I agree. I think the Pharrell songs, while they're, I think, a lot simpler, really hit a lot more for me. And not necessarily that the production in terms of like the beat is simple, but you hear the Kanye songs and they're almost a little bit jarring.
Mm.
They have these really tuned up samples. Kind of almost like a throwback Kanye production style on this, which I appreciate quite a bit hearing it because I think when the second release of the album that kind of put the Kanye tracks at the top and the Pharrell ones at the in the back half. I think that sounds a little bit better having them kind of stratified like that. Because when it goes from something like I don't know, I'm trying to see here. Oh, like
Track
on
two to
neck and
track three.
wrist. Yeah, exactly. Like that. It's such like a jarring transition. You're just like, oh
Mhm.
wow, this is not the same album at all. Although I still really like hearing them on it. Um, yeah, I'm wondering for you because you said the Pharrell ones hit most. What were your favorite Pharrell tracks from this?
Oh, I think it's track one, Brambleton.
Yeah.
Absolutely illustrious, cinematic Pharrell beat, and
Hmm.
Pusha sounds so good in that one. Going right into Let the Smokers Shine the Coops, another Pharrell beat. Really love those two tracks. And then you immediately get that jarringness of the two producers because Dreaming of the Past, featuring and produced by Kanye, is very different. But
Yep.
those first two Pharrell tracks I thought really hit awesomely.
Yeah, great way to start the album. I thought those were probably two of my favorites from the whole thing. But even later on, Call My Bluff, I thought had one of the more memorable like verse structures, kind of
Yeah.
being, just being like, in case you forgot, like that delivery. I just thought was fantastic, and it's really like Push's sounding is like most menacing on the album. Um, yeah, I just really loved that one. In terms of the Kanye tracks, any that you particularly liked?
Yeah. So I think I think even all the beats they're at least interesting. Um,
Mhm.
like what's the one with the Beyonce sample from Kanye? Uh,
Um,
one of these, like rock and roll. That's the one with the Beyonce
right.
sample.
Oh, ah,
That's a pretty interesting pull, even if like the Cuddy feature is kind of extraneous, I suppose. Like it's
mhm.
kind of weird, I think, to hear Cuddy on that song. And Cuddy obviously had a big old tweet about how this is the last time he'd be working with Kanye. He had done this for Pusha a while ago, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, nevertheless, I think like a song like Diet Coke, first single, that has like all this big Kanye production. And I think really, really cool and kind of reminiscent of some other, uh, kind of reminiscent like, I don't know, like Numbers on the Board or something like some other Pusha T tracks, solo tracks. But that's one where I feel like in the context of the album, Diet Coke actually is like lessened in estimation for me because I feel like the Pusha T performance and like the lyrics are kind of more rote and by the numbers as far as Pusha T's standards go, which doesn't make it bad at all. It just kind of makes it another good Pusha T song. And when you hear the other tracks on the album, you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that was actually kind of just a taster track at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with your take on that. I'm trying to think of what other Kanye tracks that really stood out. Like Diet Coke, I feel like the tuned up sample it really reminded me of like College Dropout Kanye. But then you get Hear Me Clearly, which has a
Yeah,
couple of other producers on it. But that feels like a just a one of the tracks they cut from Daytona. Honestly,
right.
it's like 2 minutes 20 seconds, and it sounds very much in line with that. So you get things a little bit all over the place. I really did not like the how low key the closing track was, but I
Mhm.
know that you mentioned that it kind of leaves some questions for you about Push's future. Talk about that real quick.
Well, yeah, I think there's a bunch of obvious things, right? I Pray for You, you have Labyrinth, the producer featured, but also Malice, Push's brother, one half of Clips, back as Malice, not No Malice. Of course, Clips breaks up because Malice finds God, retires, changes his name to No Malice. And we've heard Malice pop up here and there recently. It's not the first time, but the Malice verse is actually like a Clips Malice verse. He's back dark, back like evil Pusha, and meta wise, It's Almost Dry is the last Pusha T album on his Def Jam contract. And obviously his relationship with Good Music was under the umbrella of that Def Jam deal. Is Clips coming back?
Yeah.
Is Pusha T next phase of his career? He'll make a new deal. Maybe he sticks with Def Jam. He says him and Steven Victor say they're still with Good Music. They're still with Ye, but who knows if that's actually on the paper moving forward. We'll see. But I have a feeling like this could be like the grace note of Pusha T's solo career, which is been about 12 years, 13 years or so. This could be like the end of it for now, and Clips is going to come back.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious, and I think especially with Pharrell back in the mix, they're probably going to make a throwback album together, which I think would be great. I think we heard
Yeah.
a little bit of Malice on God is King, but he probably was no Malice at that point, right? I'm assuming because I
Oh,
think
oh
there's
yeah,
one
yeah,
track
that's
with
right. They
Clips.
reunited on Jesus is King on
Jesus is King. Sorry, yeah,
was it Use This Gospel is the
yeah,
track? Yeah,
yep.
that's right. That was the first reunion. Yep.
By far the best song off that album too.
Yep.
Um, get the Kenny G solo at the end, but yeah. So I think you're right. I think we're probably gonna get a Clips album. I'd imagine probably pretty quick. I think the pandemic slowed him down, but I'd imagine that they've been working and collaborating. So just
Right.
giving us a little
I mean,
taste.
and it'll be really cool to see what that manifests into because obviously Malice has had a interesting trajectory to this point, and Pusha T as well because Pusha is actually at his most famous status and place in the culture. He's actually never been bigger, even if his music isn't actually changing as much as you'd expect from someone who's getting bigger and increasing profile. But due to the Drake beef in particular, as well as the association with Kanye over the years, Pusha T is super famous. And yeah, yes, he's not as big as Drake, but like it'll be interesting to see what the Clips album entails because they had a lot of label issues towards the end of the Clips run. That's why they went down the mixtape route and did like all the Re-Up Gang stuff. So just seeing what Clips is and Kanye being assumingly involved in some way as well, in addition to you assume Pharrell and Chad Hugo. So just interesting and really cool to see that kind of future possibility. Also, one note when this album was on our radar, Diet Coke. I can't believe that hasn't been the name of a song from Pusha T
Yeah,
before. Just kind of perfect again.
that the joke. Pusha T, man, love that guy. He's just a great artist. He's a fun guy to root for because he just feels very true to just who he is. That's fun.
Totally.
It's just great. Anyways, we already put a song on our Nostalgia Best of 2022, so check that out on Spotify. Let's move on to TV, Netflix, Russian Doll back. Man, it feels like five ever since we talked about this,
Mm,
and that's because it kind of has been. I mean, this is Russian Doll dropped pre-pandemic,
yep.
which pandemic feels like 5 years. So this is like 8 years ago at this point in my mind. But
February
2019,
2019.
yes.
Long time.
So we're 3 years, 2 months removed from Natasha Lyonne's breakout show role. Really put her on the map. I mean, she had been around for a while, but I think this is the first time something really felt true to who she was as an actress. Let her,
Yeah, I would say like specifically like comeback breakthrough
yes,
because she had been around a long time and
Mhm.
famous in the New York scene, but going through all those personal issues, then get her life back on track, and then Russian Doll happens with the help of
Mhm.
Amy Poehler and Leslie Headland. It's like, oh shit, it's like huge breakthrough, and I think totally reestablishes who Natasha Lyonne is as a comedic performer.
Her character Nadia Volvikov is back for season 2, as well as a lot of the people from season 1. Obviously, Yul Vasquez as John Reyes is back this season. 7 episodes dropping for season 2. And this time exploring, I think, some different themes, not just like the time loop, but the ability to like go back and explore different periods of your family's history from the first person perspective. Uh, Pretty interesting. Dave, I know that you watched the whole season. I almost got through the whole season. We'll be talking about the whole season, though. I don't mind the spoilers. Um, Overall, what was your impression of season 2 of Russian Doll?
Yeah, so I still enjoyed it. I don't think it's as strong as season one. It's one of those things. Russian Doll season one, even Barry season one, especially Killing Eve season one. Really amazing first seasons, kind of out of nowhere of TV in the recent memory that conclude on such a awesome grace note and like are so in sync thematically that like, you're like, huh, don't know if we need more. Don't know if you could pull it off as well if you try and do it again. Barry actually managed to pull it off. Killing Eve did not. Russian Doll, coming back 3 years removed, like, oh, they're gonna try it again. Is it just gonna be a remake, rehash of season one all over again? And even if it was, honestly, probably wouldn't be that bad because Natasha Lyonne's really fucking funny. Wouldn't mind, but it's not that. I think this is definitely a messier season. Uh, Perhaps has even loftier thematic ambitions, but I don't know if it doesn't come together as well as season one did, which I think really took that Groundhog Day concept that you're introduced to in the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and by the end of that first season, you're actually much more invested in like the emotional journey of Nadia and Alan, and like their actual like personal growth is a bit more important than resolving the uh, multidimensional troubles they're having. So season two, I don't know if it brings it all together quite as well, but they at least change it up enough that I'm still happy that they were able to bring it back because I think it's still really enjoyable, like almost the entire time. It's still really fun.
Definitely a lot of fun. And I think going through the different periods of history, seeing the different interactions, while there's certainly some moments I'm like, nah, this is definitely just a TV show portrayal of this. I definitely think it's really interesting and it asks some I think interesting questions. I particularly like the themes of just like understanding your family history and that intergenerational trauma that kind of is a running theme for um, both characters in this season. Um, Natasha Leona is interesting because that her character is so gruff New York City
Yeah.
alternative chick, and it's kind of it feels almost turned up a notch in this season, like just kind of like even wittier, even more like sly and quick tongued, and uh,
Mm.
it worked at some points, and at some points I just wanted her to like tone it down a bit and just be like, hey, like you don't have to always be like boom boom boom, but that really is just the character. It just for some reason felt like it didn't hit as much for me this season, but
Hmm.
I still enjoyed every episode that I've been able to watch so far because I think it just asks good questions and it just is putting the characters in interesting situations that you definitely want to keep sitting with.
Yeah, I mean, you have Natasha Lyonne, who, like you said, is super associated with New York and her
Mhm.
as a performer, very New York, the accent, the rasp, things like that. This time around, her mom is played by Chloe Sevigny, another
Mhm.
person very associated with New York City. So I just saw like meta wise that was kind of cool, and I think Sevigny actually was a very small role in season one as well. But yeah, I think because there's just kind of more going on from a plot perspective in season two that you can kind of get a little frustrated with just Nadia's personality, I guess, because you're like, hey, can you just like get to like fixing things?
Yeah.
But to the show's credit, I think it does enough work to like establish why Nadia is kind of like getting off the path and starting to lose her marbles a little bit as the timelines are beginning to blend and take over and things like that. I think the issue with season two overall is that there's just not a lot of Alan. You know,
No.
like the season one first 10 minutes, the hook, the happy birthday baby repeat. The hook of the Groundhog Day stuff, amazing. And then what? Halfway through, roughly, season one, we're in Alan's shoes, and it's like, oh fuck, this is awesome, and like, the show actually like grows right in front of your eyes and goes somewhere you didn't expect. Season two, though, yes, we spend some time with Alan, just Alan, but like it just I don't think it's enough, and like his payoff just isn't really there, and just kind of a bit unfortunate because he was such a integral part to why season one came together at the end.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. You kind of saw how their friendship had grown. From the last time we see them to when the story begins. In the first episode, Nadia just shows up at his house and he just kind of comes in unannounced, and he's like, "You know that you can only do this in emergencies." And so you kind of it's kind of established that they've grown to their friendship since then, which makes sense given what they went through. I gotta say, I was disappointed to not get more of him this season, but I did really like when some of those characters just like randomly popped up. Especially, I mean, I guess not a random character, but her best friend Maxine Greta Lee is just
Yeah,
dynamite in the
Always.
episode. I think it's episode 3, Brain Drain, when they go
Mhm.
to
Budapest.
Budapest, and oh my god, she is just hysterical that whole episode. She had me dying. Her delivery and just her perspective is so out there and hilarious, and Greta Lee really delivers all that so well. Um, what other characters that pop up in this season did you find yourself enjoying being with?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Charlton Copley's character. What's his name? Rez? Is that his name? Uh,
Ches.
Ches, yeah.
Yeah.
Just because I always like Copley.
Mhm.
Ever since I saw him in District 9, pops up here and there. And it's like, oh yeah, that guy. Cool. And I think he definitely brought the right kind of edge to the scumbag character he's playing in relationship to Nadia's mom. Um, even if it's like kind of by the numbers, it is kind of fun to just like, hey, we're in fucking East Berlin, Cold War time, Berlin Wall's up.
Yep.
Ooh, spooky times, and then go further back. It's like, hey, look, there's some Nazis. It's like, they don't really, take it anywhere super profound, but still kind of cool.
Yeah. I really liked when Annie Murphy popped up as
Mhm.
young Ruth. Just like what did she call her? She calls her like a Jackie O looking bitch or something like that. She like said something very specific, and or it was like Mia Farrow or something. I just died laughing because I was like, oh yeah, like Annie Murphy really is just a knockout, and you can almost like take her for granted given all the
Mhm.
Schitt's Creek, like how funny and well written that show is and the character development. But yeah, her presence on screen was evident even as like a toned back, just like nice
Right.
character. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think who else really stood out. I
I
agree.
mean,
The Cold War stuff was cool for sure.
yeah. I mean, I really like Elizabeth Ashley as present day Ruth. I
Yeah.
I quite enjoy that performance. Her and Leon have a good chemistry, play off each other well.
Mhm.
I think it's just kind of cool because like this whole story, you're not really dealing with anyone super young. Honestly, everyone's like middle aged for the most part. It's kind of interesting to see everything, and like because like I feel like all the characters are pretty mature in this story through two
Yeah.
seasons. Um, Leon has kind of suggested ideas for a third season, and I mean, at this point, why not go for it if Netflix still wants to greenlight it? Who knows? I guess in that department, but I have a feeling they'll again try and do some kind of new spin on it because they tried to do a new spin on season 2. So hopefully, if they do come back, we can get more of Barnett, get more of Alan.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hope they make more of this. I really, even if season 2 doesn't hit quite as hard as season 1, the themes that they're going for, the questions they're asking, the things they're looking at are lofty and high concept, and I really appreciate them at least taking these swings. And
Totally.
Leon is
Um,
is a cool character to sit with for sure.
yeah, we also sitting now as too showrunner, co-creator Leslie Headland. She didn't actually doing directing this time around, but still very excited for what's next for her because she's the one developing the Acolyte
Mhm.
Star Wars series on Disney Plus, which is going to be set in the past in the High Republic times, thus completely removed from any Skywalkers. So really curious to see what her spin is on that. We're going to get that show next year.
Absolutely. So we'll be talking about her. We'll be talking about Russian Doll if we get another season. Hopefully we do. Let's switch over though to another show that we enjoy quite a bit, and that's Barry. Back for what, season 3 now?
Yeah,
Crazy. Season 3 of Barry, man. Another show where it feels like forever since we got it, and that's because this dropped only 3 months after Russian Doll. So it
yeah,
has been almost exactly 3 years since we
right.
got Barry. May 2019, last time we watched Berkman to Block, the last episode of season 2. It's back. Bill Hader's back. Alec Berg is back. A lot of it was funny. I was talking with a friend of the show, Sean McKenna, about this, and he was like, "Do you think I should go back and watch any of Barry season 2, or should I just like watch the recap at the beginning?" I was like, you know what, the recap will probably tell you the whole story. I don't know if I felt like I needed to go back and watch it, but every time I watch Barry, I'm like, oh yeah, this show is so much more layered than I
Yeah,
remember. It's really well done.
totally. If anything, maybe I want to go back and rewatch the Ronnie Lilly episode from
Hmm.
season 2, which was like this kind of out of nowhere, like action, martial arts.
Yeah.
episode. Apparently, there's going to be more action in season 3, which is cool. But yeah, it's been a long time since Barry come out. They were only, I think, a few weeks away from shooting season 3 when the pandemic hit too. So this this was really affected uh, by that, obviously. But I think what's really cool about Barry is another, it's a show that season 2 we had some questions going in, but I think the end of season 2 and the start of season 3 kind of really cement that the show was willing to change and evolve. We have completely cast aside the acting class framing device that was so central to most of Barry to this point. And the characters are truly moving forward, or at least moving in new directions, or that's apart or closer. And I think just its status as a uh, black comedy, a true dramedy, that doesn't isn't afraid to get dark, uh, lends itself to like these really rich performances, but also like really rich character arcs and what Barry's been through, where Sally's going. Like I think there's just so much going on, but it's really fun to see that the show isn't complacent in really any department.
Yeah. The Hader as a dramatic actor. I mean, certainly he's had a few more dramatic roles since his SNL days, but always kind of that comedy aspect is what he's obviously known for. The way he has just kind of blossomed in this role and as this like uh highly depressed, um almost at times like a feeling inhuman type character who's kind of like finding what it means to like be happy and be alive again, and then navigating the all the layers of his relationship with Fuchs, his relationship with Sally, and everybody else. It's it's really impressive, and I think this the first episode of season 3 really highlights just how good he is in this role, because he's really walking around like a zombie. Yes, in a lot of this, the scene, if you're watching on YouTube, that he's calling this new client. The scene behind me, I should say, if you're watching YouTube, he's calling this client, and she's telling him about how he needs her, or she needs him to kill her husband because she caught him cheating, and he ruined her life, all this stuff, and he just is like, "Do the flowers mean anything different? Can you answer this question for me?" And it's hilarious, but also just like so gutting and sad to see Barry like in this, as this person who thought he had found everything he wanted and now is feeling even more lost and hopeless and depressed than he was before. And I think that's even highlighted further at the end of the episode, where he is with Gene and is about to kill him, and then he has that eureka moment, and just seeing him like kind of flip in that moment, the way he's able to do that, and it felt so realistic. It was just, I thought, so impressive. Really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the way the episode looked at points, like that scene with Sally where she's on the set, moving from scene to scene, kind of running through
Mm.
that. Just was like, I thought that was so well done, so well written, just like really believable, and just like you said, the show is firing on all cylinders right away.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see where the Sally arc is going. From what I understand from future episodes, it's going to be a big, kind of critique and comment on how Hollywood and film production operates and how it treats people that it's, working within it. And it'll be really interesting to see how the Sally character handles all of that. Uh, again, definitely something new for the show, and it's just really exciting. Where NoHo Hank goes,
Yeah,
don't really know, but Anthony Carrigan's just so fucking funny and awesome in the role that I trust that they'll find something for him to do, because I mean he was supposed to be dead long ago, but they realized the performance was just so dynamite they had to keep him around. Um, I think it actually is kind of an interesting premise of Hank trying to reinvent himself, because everyone he worked with and around and under him, they're all dead. So he's going to reinvent himself with new people that actually don't know about his previous incompetence. I think that's actually a really funny idea. I want to see how that's executed. Um, and then yeah, the obvious Gene Barry conflict just completely exposed. There's no there's no more tension about will Gene find out. He knows Fuchs told him in the season 2 finale. So now what happens?
Yeah.
Like they didn't waste any time kind of dragging that out. We're actually just getting right to it.
Yeah, going back to NoHo Hank real quick. Him, coming home giddy to Cristobal and being like, "I had my first interrogation." I think I really nailed it. Just was so funny. Also, seeing him like in the interrogation room, like all the stuff he was just coming up with off the top of his head was hilarious.
The
Um,
Raven.
yeah. He was like, "No, it's like a real name. It's like a really cool name."
You can look it up. It has many meanings.
So good. Um, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see where it goes, but I'm wondering if you see the scene where going back to what you're mentioning about Sally's arc in this season, where she, after the meeting with the producers of her show, approaches DRC Cardin's Natalie
Mhm.
Greer, and she's like, I just really don't talk in the meetings. Just kind of like go make me a snack while it happens, and uh Natalie's face at the end of that scene as Sally walks away is just so like gutted and disgusted and angry, but like kind of keeping it together. And I'm wondering if we're going to get a little bit more DRC this season. Obviously a
Mm,
big hit on The Good Place,
right.
and just someone that feels like primed to have a breakout at some point. And I really hope that they kind of bring her in, maybe as like the juxtaposition of to Sally of like females in the industry in some way, something like that. So interested to see where it goes. We didn't get a lot of Fuchs. Stephen Root obviously is excellent in pretty much everything he's in, but didn't get too much of him in this episode, other than kind of seeing him in this like I don't know, hideaway house, trying to convince the guys that's like watching over
Right.
him to watch football with him. So I'm
Right.
hoping he's not sidelined too much moving forward.
Yeah, I mean he's literally with the Chechens, I believe in Chechnya.
Yeah,
So yeah, it'll take some moving to get him back with the core group.
for sure. Any last thoughts? Are you ready to move on?
Just happy the show's back. You kind of
Yeah.
forget what you've missed when it's been so long. 3+ years, but here it is. And I know Hader took a lot of time with the scripts with the extra time the pandemic allowed. So it sounds like they really got what they wanted with season 3. So now we just get to see it.
Absolutely. Let's move forward to another HBO show that premiered, not on Sunday, though, on Mondays, as David Simon likes to do, most recently with The Plot Against America, which, Dave, I mean, if you want to talk a relic of the pandemic, The Plot Against America literally premiered like or the day before the pandemic really started, like a few days before, March
Mm.
16th, 2020. That was the last time we really got a David Simon property. We talked about the Deuce. I guess maybe has the Deuce come out since then?
No, the
Deuce
Deuce
was
was
before.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, Deuce was right before. Um, Plot Against America, we really liked. The Deuce, we really liked. Obviously, The Wire. David Simon is Generation Kill. David Simon has made so much
Yeah.
good television for HBO. It's
So
crazy.
prolific, but the batting average is also so high.
Yeah,
And he's just a HBO workhorse at this point. Literally all of his shows that he's been the creator of have been at HBO the last 20+ years.
it's funny. I haven't seen Treme. I've heard really good things
Yeah,
about it. Haven't seen Show Me a Hero.
I
Also
have. It's
heard good
awesome.
things. And it's funny because I feel like Show Me a Hero is like the least talked about one I see from him, and it's Oscar Isaac
Yeah.
being excellent in a David Simon show. That's like,
Bernthal's in it too.
yeah,
Here he is
it's like, oh,
reuniting with Simon.
the bad David Simon show is literally still excellent. So yeah, like you said, the batting average is really high. He's back in Baltimore this time. It seems like really just looking at how messed up the system of policing is, as
Mm,
it's facing higher awareness around the treatment of people of color, people in the BIPOC population by the police. Really examining, I think, a lot of the issues within the system,
mhm.
as well as it seems like also going to be tackling how potential Trump presidency is going to impact the way that people prosecute things in the DA's office and above. So there's a lot of different things at play here. I thought this first episode was excellent. George Pelecanos and David Simon were at the wrote this one. So there's I think obviously going to get a lot of talent from that. But I mean, just overall, what was your impression of this first episode? Were you impressed?
Yeah, I was impressed. I did really enjoy it, and I think it's coming at an interesting time. This is adapting a book of the same name from Justin Fenton, who is a investigative reporter for the Baltimore Sun. David Simon, of course, is a Baltimore Sun alumnus. As you said, he has previously made shows about his hometown in Baltimore with The Corner, and he actually worked on Homicide, Life on the Street as well, and then, of course, most famously with The Wire. So now to come back to Baltimore in some fashion and have police be involved and crime be involved again. I mean, what else would it be involved with? It's a David Simon series. Uh, but to go back now, not redoing The Wire, but to go back now, what are you trying to say? What is this show actually about? And I think it's really interesting to have it grounded in 2015, and it'll go back in time as well. It's bit non-linear from what we saw in the first episode, but 2015 is kind of our present time, and the shadow of the death of Freddie Gray in Baltimore is kind of informing how everything's going on. But just a show that's really unflinching in its portrayal of uh, corruption in policing, and not just unfair and unequitable treatment by the police, but literally just straight up like police misconduct. And of course, all grounded in reality. That is the gun trace task force that was in Baltimore until it was exposed and taken down. It's just really compelling TV. And it's right up Simon and Pelicano's alley. And we actually have all 6 episodes directed by Renato Marcus Green, who just directed John Bernthal in King Richard, Best Picture nominee, NBD. So I'm just really excited to spend more time with this just because already we have all these threads established through one episode of people on all sides of this story, crooked cops, uh, people, drug dealers and criminal types, and then people actually trying to fix it, whether they're normal cops or Justice Department people or feds, whatever it is. There's so much already going on, but I think the core subject matter, and you kind of already know like the opinion of Simon and Pelicanos if you know their work. If you go on Simon's Twitter, you kind of already know what they think about this, but now we actually get to see it dramatized.
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned how they do just so much like laying of the foundation of the story in this first episode, and I feel like they do it so expertly. It never feels like it's like too much exposition. I mean, I think there's some moments maybe between like um Jackson and Steele, the two attorneys who are kind of at the center of the civil rights division of the Justice Department in this, where Steele is kind of explaining to Jackson, the newbie, like, oh, this is what's going on. These are the politics of things. These how things go about, and that does some of the laying, but of the groundwork. But I think there's a lot more of like showing you, right, like the moments where they're actually on the street, um, brutalizing people intentionally, coming into contact with people so that they have a reason to beat them up and arrest them. But then also, the stuff with Bernthal when they ransack that house. I used to say ransack. I guess it's more like they toss the house and raid it.
Mhm.
But you see a lot of the underbelly of the GTTF and um, just how corrupt they were and some of the shit they were doing. And Bernthal, man, I mean, the guy is just so good. To see where he's come. I remember seeing him in The Walking Dead the first
Yeah,
season,
that was the first time anyone really knew who he was
and he was so
10 years
dynamite
ago.
in that. And it felt like for a while he never was gonna like break out of that, and now it just feels like people are really finally respecting him as like the excellent presence he is on screen.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like the Punisher, honestly,
Yeah,
Marvel,
good
Netflix. I
point.
feel like that really raised the profile for him broadly. But he's just taken lots of good parts, whether it's Fury or King Richard, which is definitely a bit different than what we expect from Bernthal. Um, even smaller stuff like Wolf of Wall Street. Like he's just a really dependable performer, really charismatic but still unique. Um, it seems like this is going to be a bit more in line with what we think of him from, like, say, Sicario, for example, given what his Wayne Jenkins cop character seems to be, who I believe that's actually the real name of the officer in real life. But yeah, I mean, as soon as the episode ended, I was like, "Fuck, I need more of this right now." Obviously,
Yeah.
HBO knows how to spread it around. Really excited for that. But I actually saw some people saying in reviews that this is it's a mini series, and I always really respect that. Like Simon, he does mini series, and except for the Deuce, everything's been a mini series lately. And
Yeah.
uh, get in, get out, say your piece. But even if We Own the City might not have enough like thematic like comment to justify 6 episodes, I don't think it's going to be a problem just because we're going to get to see all these performers and all this like, tact and professionalism thrown in, that even if it's like more time kind of showing us again the wanton uh evil of this corrupt police unit, I don't mind, like even if it's like like that kind of wheel spinning doesn't bother me.
No, not at all. He just makes everything so much like fun to watch, even when it's like procedural shit. Like
Yeah.
if you watch The Wire, like you never would have thought like watching cops decipher and like listen in on phone calls would be as interesting as he makes it. He's just able to like
I,
highlight how fascinating everything is.
if you've seen Show Me a Hero, it's like the actual subject matter of what they're like working on in this like small like Jersey municipality is like very super granular, and not like this like riveting stuff of local politics, but just there's just a way with the pen
Yeah.
and the storytelling choices. What I really liked about We Own the City episode 1 though was the fake out they do. You have the guy being interrogated about his in the future scenes, and you just assume he's a criminal because we've seen a lot of people being accosted and arrested by the police, and then we see this guy in the past break into a drug dealer's apartment that other police are watching too. We see this guy break in with his some of his colleagues, right? And we assume that he's you know, a rival criminal or something like that. And then we actually realize later on that no, these are cops. These are part of the corrupt cops. And it's like this whole fake out of like what the true focus is of the show, and
Yeah.
I thought that was done so well.
No, for sure. It, Simon is just so clever in terms of how he crafts these tales, man. And it was kind of weird being someone who's watched The Wire probably 2 or 3 times, maybe even more in my life. Seeing people like Jamie Hector, who played Omar on the show, a couple other people like Delaney Williams, who's the police commissioner in this. He was a detective on The Wire. Um, Trey Chaney, Dominic Lombardozzi. It's like you see these people and like, especially Jamie Hector being this homicide detective when he was literally like the kingpin by the end of The Wire that everybody was after. It was like, oh, this is strange to see, but also kind of like a fun moment to see how far they've come since that moment where you can recast these guys and it's not that big of a deal. In terms of the storylines, though, I wanted to just shout out David Cornsweet
Yes.
as McDougal. He just is like every scene he was in. I just thought he was awesome. I can't wait to see what more his character is going to do this season. But I loved him.
Yeah, and I was like, who is that? And I looked it up. I was like, oh fuck, I didn't recognize him like with the beard, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think of him from some of his Ryan Murphy roles, and this
Yep.
definitely feels different for him, and an awesome look. I'm really happy to see it. Definitely doing something new for his career.
Yeah. Last time we talked about him was probably Hollywood,
Yeah,
which I mean, as the lead in Hollywood to this, I think definitely a better look for him. Also, Wunmi Masaku as Nicole Steele, the attorney for the Civil Rights Division. I thought she was really excellent. So excited to see those two storylines play out specifically, but it's just going to be great. I mean, obviously, you want to see what Bernthal's going to do. That ending scene where he's just like sitting in the interrogation room with those crazy eyes, man, what a way to end it. So, looking forward to watching more of We Own the City. We'll be talking about it when the show wraps up. Any last thoughts, Dave? Are you ready to talk about Nick Cage?
let's go, baby.
Nick Cage, boy, what a character! in He played a lot of good characters, also in real life. Quite the character. I had a
Yep.
conversation with some people about him this weekend, and I think everybody had a different, like, ridiculous story. Whether it was talking about the dinosaur head, which I believe he bought, but it was
Yeah. The
actually
skull.
stolen, had to
Yeah.
be given back. The fact he owned a haunted house in New Orleans, which I've actually been to, or at least outside of, very creepy. Some of the stories around that are pretty ridiculous. Or if you just even think about, like, all the ridiculous roles he's played and characters he's been, he is quite the character. But recently, he's been making a bit of a comeback, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally. And Nicolas Cage, he's been in the game so long,
40 years.
yeah, 4 year career, or whatever. Like he's had many comebacks for different reasons. So this is not the first one, but he has seemed to have come out of the on the other side of his most recent troubles, which were largely financial. He's working a ton, working on a lot of independent film and not, outside the studio system work, largely to cover like debts and personal mistakes he has made in his life. But more recently, I think the choices have just been more positively received with stuff like Colored Out of Space and Mandy. But then last year with Pig kind of coming out of nowhere from Neon, and just a really amazing performance from Cage, Oscar worthy for sure. And now you're following it up with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is a pretty by the numbers action comedy. But the core appeal of it is that it's super metatextual reference about Nick Cage playing himself. And I don't really know what other actors could be in a role like this, because who else has the material to make a movie like this about themselves? Who else could do this besides Nicolas Cage? Nicolas Cage is a meme for many reasons, and this movie is largely about that meme.
Yeah. There's only one other actor that comes to mind that could have done this, and it's honestly someone who's kind of been doing similar stuff, and that's Keanu,
Ah,
who
yeah.
has been kind of lambasted for his acting style at times, had the action career, has done romantic comedies, kind of has
Hmm.
done the whole gambit, and now more recently he's kind of leaning into this, like, self-referential aspect of his career where he's almost playing himself just in every role at this point.
Right. It's like think of the "Always Be My Maybe"
Exactly.
cameo for this exactly. I guess Tom Cruise could do something like this, but the
Oh my god.
problem is Cruise still takes himself too seriously to ever attempt something like this. Cage is very game in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and really lampoons a lot of things about his life and his career that did in fact really happen.
Yeah.
And that just makes the movie really enjoyable no matter what kind of Cage fan you are, because also I think is a really fun action comedy. And Cage and Pedro Pascal have great chemistry, and they're both movie stars.
Yeah, just thinking about both Keanu and Tom Cruise, which I think that's a great call. If he wanted to, he definitely could do something like this. But Cruise and Keanu have those action franchises right now that they still rely upon, whereas Cage doesn't really have that franchise, which I think
Yeah.
even makes this part of his career even more impressive because he really is just kind of doing movies that he really believes in or wants to do. It seems, and that seems to be hitting more. Um, yeah,
National Treasure 3, you think Disney's thinking about it?
I think they
That's the
gotta be.
franchise that's right there for them.
I would love it if it came back. I mean, it's a terrible franchise, but it's also so good at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is. So yeah, now we come to the actual movie. We've been talking around it. The unbearable weight of massive talent. Nicolas Cage is Nick Cage in this movie, and it's a lot of fun. I found this to be like you mentioned. I think it talks about a lot of the different aspects of Nick Cage's career and life, and I think the way it kind of weaves in and out of these things that actually happened, with just kind of things from the story, or things from the written plot and story is pretty interesting. But really, just putting Nicolas Cage alongside Pedro Pascal and letting them just, like, have a great time makes the movie so much fun. And I just thought this was super enjoyable. Not a movie that I think will make anyone's end of year list, but for what it is, just a real delight. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I really enjoyed myself the entire time. I think what perhaps disappointing about it is it doesn't actually dig as deep as it potentially could about the Cage of it all. You know, Cage again has had multitudes in his career, in his personal life, in his time as a celebrity. There was a lot of material to mine, but also things to comment on. But this movie doesn't actually go that deep, which is totally okay because the movie's still really fun. And even if it's ultimately just kind of about the meme of Cage, you know, not the bees, like he openly acknowledges the meme in the movie. It doesn't actually go beyond the meme that much, but again, it's fine because the movie is still a lot of fun. And I think the stuff that works best is, I think, clearly like the Pascal Cage of it all. Pascal's character as this like super fan in Mallorca, bringing Cage out to him, and they actually become a kindred spirits, and they have like these comments about like film production and making original movies and stuff. And it's actually like a huge reference to a lot of people like us that talk about the movie industry in more high-minded ways. And it's like that was like really funny to hear that expressed. And like again, we don't get too deep about anything in this movie, but it's totally fine just to see things acknowledged the way they are. I think the stuff with uh, Javi's cousin, who's the actual villain, the actual crime lord in the story. That stuff's like pretty standard, and like that ending action stuff is pretty standard. Um, but again, I don't mind because like I feel like the chemistry between our core characters is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I felt like that kind of stuff was just like background, but I really enjoyed more so just like the scenes where Cage was kind of put in these situations where he has to like choose between these ridiculous outcomes, and just like the whole like premise of him like going to this island to like basically like a money grab and then being thrown into this like CIA undercover plot while he's actually like becoming friends with Javi. It's just like such a fun
Yeah.
like
His
juxtaposition. Then you throw his family into it. It's great.
yeah, his nouveau shamanic acting ability. I might actually be a good CIA agent.
Mhm.
Like he
Yeah.
just sells it really well.
Yeah, yeah. CIA agents and acting have a lot in common. I'm basically a CIA agent. Just like, yeah, the logic's fantastic. I also really liked the stuff where it was like him facing himself and just like how much he was really laughing at himself as like
Mm,
Nicky Cage, the younger
yes.
version of himself, and where they actually like make out at one point and just
Which
like,
apparently was a Cage suggestion. The script had him just kiss on the cheek, and it was Nick Cage in real life who said, "No, I want to aggressively make out with Nikki."
that's fantastic. I just love how game Cage was to like poke fun at himself in this.
Yeah,
I don't know if many stars like you mentioned would have the balls to do something like this.
yeah. Honestly, like, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just fun, and like,
Mhm,
if no one else wants to do it, that's fine. Cage did want to do it. That's cool.
mhm.
Um, Heck, I even thought like Ike Barinholtz and Haddish were pretty good. Like again, like the whole like FBI plot itself is pretty paint by numbers, but I thought Haddish and Ike were like really funny, especially when they're first introduced. Um,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, I actually felt like Haddish should have been used a little bit more in this because I felt like her whole like straight laced FBI agent with Cage's ridiculousness was actually like a pretty fun duo between them. And I was thinking, Haddish was such a rocket there back a few years ago, like what 2018, when like
yeah,
she was
girls
popping
trip.
off with girls trip and night school and stuff like that. And then I mean, she was in doing a lot of voice acting stuff.
Card Counter last year was a hit for her.
And yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe she's starting to take some more thoughtful roles. I dug her with the shaved head.
Mhm.
I'm kind of hoping maybe she's like gonna be going more towards some like serious stuff or maybe some better choices. But
Sure.
I'm looking here and she's in Haunted Mansion next year, which just the name of it
Oh, the
doesn't sound.
Scarlet movie, right? Yeah,
Yeah, no, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, no, could have used a little bit more Haddish. But yeah, I thought
right.
this was just great.
Yeah, and Pascal too, like just continues to impress. He's gotten more and more famous ever since
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, and he's in The Mandalorian, even if most people don't realize it. Seeing the scene, obviously, with the helmet, and the stunt work. But like even like Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't very good, but Pascal was good as the
Yeah.
bad guy and really swarmy, and in this movie he's like just so committed, and he just instantly plays off of Cage. And I mean, Pascal's a rocket ship, nothing to worry about there. But really,
Yeah.
just curious to see what's next for Cage, because we're in the midst of one of these Cage comebacks, and he seems to at least be somewhat self-aware of his standing in the culture and his career, as evidenced by this film. So, uh, who knows where it can go? I feel like it's hard to predict.
Yeah, it's funny. Just looking quickly through the Pascal filmography here. Obviously, we saw him in The Bubble recently, and
Mhm.
even if that movie was not one of our favorites, the scene where he almost died is by far the funniest scene in that movie, and he's pretty fun in that. But he did Triple Frontier a few years back.
Oh
He
yeah.
had I think a guest appearance. I don't really remember him in this, but in Beale Street, if Beale Street Could Talk, he was in
Oh, I
that.
don't remember
So
that either. Yeah.
I he's done some good stuff. Kingsman: The Golden Circle, he's in for a little bit. So there's some I mean everything he's in, he's just a delight. I really enjoy where his career's
Yeah.
going. And by far my favorite scene was them tripping on LSD. I mean that was just hilarious
Yep.
to me.
Yeah. Everything with the car. Cage starts driving, crashes into fucking everything.
Well,
Like
even
it's
how it starts when they're like the guys eating ice cream, they're like, "Don't look," and then he just like looks over. It's just hilarious.
laugh naturally.
Staring dead in the eye. Also, then with the whole like wall thing where he's like, I'll never forget you," like whatever, and then he just like walks around to the side. The whole
Yeah.
thing's just so ridiculous. That was great.
Also, quick shout out to the actress who plays Cage's daughter in the film, played by Lily Sheen, who I'd never seen before, but turns out she is the daughter of Kate Beckinsale and Martin Sheen. Who would have known?
Wow. I'm sure we'll be hearing from her more moving forward. I mean, any last thoughts on this? I think this is a fun movie.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, a movie we enjoyed. But did you also enjoy The Northman, also in theaters this weekend?
Oh yes, brother. The Northman. We will be eating well in Valhalla, drinking the blood of thy enemy, because Robert Eggers fucking smashed it, my guy. Viking epic in every sense of the word, but
Yeah,
still what you don't expect because it's a Robert Eggers movie.
Eggers. I mean, three movies in, three feature
Mhm.
films in: The Witch, The Lighthouse, a movie I think you talked about in the pod when it came out,
Fuck
and
yeah.
now The Northman. I mean, by far biggest budget he's had, by far biggest story he's told, and man, I just was so impressed by this movie. Eggers is uh, probably the up and coming like director, the one who's like not anointed yet, but seems like he's like right on the
Mm.
precipice after this, right?
I suppose. I mean, I feel like in a certain sense he has been anointed. He's like 30, what, 37, 38. It's not like he's super young. This is his third film. And I actually we saw it pointed out, Ari Aster's third film's coming out this year. Jordan Peele's third film is coming out this year. In a certain sense, they all kind of came up together, operating in various ways in this quote elevated horror style of filmmaking that we've seen recently. But yeah, I mean, Eggers, even if this movie, The Northman, didn't financially do enough at the box office to justify its big costs, artistically, creatively, he certainly delivered at scale. And it'd be very interesting to see who tries to approach him about what to do next, because he's a very particular guy. He wants to keep making movies in the past. He makes such a big point of how much research he does into period detail about his movies. It's been a huge aspect of all three of these movies to this point. And if it was up to him, the Northman would have been in Old Slavic and Old Norse and not in English, you know? But he had to make some compromises because with a movie of this scale, he didn't actually have Final Cut. So I don't know if he's ever going to truly play ball the way some in the industry might want him to, but he's certainly being celebrated by film fans and people that do see his movies.
Yeah. I hope he gets given the reins to some sort of franchise. Even if it's something like I don't know, old school. Like this just kind of came to mind, but I feel like he would do like an old school like Civil War movie, like really really
Mm.
well, something like an Angels and Demons type series or something like
Huh.
that. I don't know. Could
Yeah.
really see him just crushing like a period drama like that. But regardless, I just feel like you got to be all in on the Eggers train at this point because if you've seen The Northman, not only is it like an amazing action movie with some of the best action scenes I can remember seeing in recent film
Mhm.
history and practical scenes too, which makes it that much better. But just you can just tell how much time he spends getting every single aspect of his movies perfect, and the image he has in his head, he goes to great lengths to get that on film. And I just was so impressed. It's hard to pick like one scene that stands out, but man, I was in the theater I was in. There was this these two guys that went to go see the movie together, and they were just cackling the whole time, just to like how amazing and ridiculous it was. Like in that
Mm.
final act when he says like "I'll meet you at the gates of hell," and then just the the scene or the title card comes up and it says "the gates of hell." People are literally like, "Yeah!" Like, it was just like a moment. People were like going nuts because it was like, "Yes, we're actually getting like the gates of hell moment." It's so awesome,
Yeah.
and like people
Along
just
those lines, I had someone in my theater uh, cheer loudly when the final strikes happen at the gates of hell, and then
yes,
cheered even louder soon afterwards when the credits roll. Just the dude
yeah.
was absolutely juiced, and I love the passion. I love the energy because this is that kind of story. It's not that the plot is unfamiliar. It, in fact, is quite familiar based off of the Icelandic, Nordic myth of Amleth, which is not far off from Hamlet. Shakespeare took inspiration from the very myth. So you do
Huh.
know narratively, dramatically, more or less where things are going. You know, man, a young boy finds his father murdered by his treacherous uncle, goes away and plots his revenge. Like you understand that premise, and it's still really satisfying to see it executed. And because it's a Robert Eggers movie, there are all these other accoutrements to this film, whether it's hallucinations from Amleth or ritual scenes where they start tripping balls and howling like wolves, whatever it might be. Does all these other digressions and has so many other interests in how he likes to plot his story that even if the core plot is actually pretty conventional, it's still just a thrilling and riveting ride because there's still so much unexpected here and there.
Yes, couldn't agree more. And I think what I found myself even more impressed by than the visual aspect, the action aspect, the attention to detail was just how full the story felt. You leave this movie and you're watching it pretty much from the perspective of Amleth, and Olga, and where their
Mm,
story as a family is going, that revenge story. But in so many ways, this story could have been told from the perspective of Fjolnir,
mhm,
played by Claes Bang, and it's a
yeah,
completely different story, and you totally understand his motivations. You totally understand, this like black and white, this non-black and white storytelling, this very gray and detailed and fully fleshed out perspective, and you kind of are left like, man, was Amleth really the good guy or the bad guy in this in a
totally.
lot of ways? And I just was like so impressed by that because if this very much could have just been like that true revenge, like Amleth is totally in the right for doing all this, and like you just kind of leave, and it's still a good movie. But it was that much better because everybody's perspective was given attention.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if someone else made this movie, Fjolnir probably is still the king over in
Yeah.
Scandinavia and hasn't fled with what he has left to Iceland to be a farmer.
Hmm.
And Amleth's revenge includes taking down Fjolnir at the height of his powers and then assuming the throne.
Right.
Someone else probably tells that version of the story, but that's not what we get
Hmm.
here. And I liked Anya Taylor Joy as Olga of the Birch Forest quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think Olga is as fully fleshed a character as she could have been, but it doesn't really pass the Bechdel test all that well. But like how she impacts Amleth at the end, when Amleth dives off the ship, and like he's just too obsessed with revenge against Fjolnir, and he just can't give it up until he's actually dead. And it's like, man, at that point, you're like you're kind of doubting what Amleth's got going on upstairs, just because he's like he's just, and he actually says it himself in one way or another. He's like, I've been so consumed with this chase for revenge, I actually don't know what would what to do after that's done.
Yeah.
And when you watch the movie, you don't have to worry about the answer to that question, obviously. But it's kind of like a dog chasing its tail, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And just to kind of I think rewind a bit, I thought the opening of the movie is awesome. Told from the perspective of Child Amleth, played by Oscar Novak, who I thought was a really like striking looking
Yeah,
child actor.
nice
Has a
haircut.
yes, and has a very like particular like face about him. And his relationship with his mom, played by Nicole Kidman, Queen Gudrun,
Mhm.
and Ethan Hawke, King
Yes.
Arvendil. Ethan Hawke just looking brolic and amazing. Also, we should say quick, Skarsgård is like unbelievably jacked in this movie. Like I don't even know how a human being gets that
Insane.
ripped. It's
Yeah.
it's nuts. But yeah, I loved this opening scene. Ethan Hawke is so good. And then you get that really weird scene with Defoe as Hymir, and when they kind of
Yep.
anoint Amleth as a man in that like
Yep.
spiritual ritual, just so weird and fun.
I saw someone call it like Norse bar mitzvah or something like that. It's basically his coming of age, but they get him high in one way or another, and then they just
Yeah.
assume the wolf identity and stuff. But I really loved like when that's going, and you have Defoe, you have Hamir the Fool's like narration, but it's like overdubbed, very reminiscent of like parts of The Lighthouse, of which Defoe was the co-lead in. Like really effective scene, and then right off the jump, as soon as that scene ends, Fjolnir uh, gets after it, and Hawk gets got. You know, it's they don't waste any time. I really like that entrance scene though when Hawk arrives from war, because like it's a really like cold scene. You know, he's not like he's this beloved king, even if he is the king. You know, and you can kind of see with Claes Bang's energy, it's like, feeling here ain't too happy with what's going on right now. And it's like it doesn't matter that you can see it coming, because I think everything works. Because like you said, once we see Claes Bang again in Iceland, your perception of Fjolnir is so different. You know, it's such a different character than like the evil, murderous uncle that we're introduced to.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm really struck by just like so much of like the foreshadowing of the story that's told in this part. Right, not only do you get the moment where Hymir, who's this fool, but also this like friend of Arvindil, and he kind of makes the joke like, oh, her cup gets wet for for the brother, or however he says it. And
Yeah,
Fjolnir, you know, kind of out of duty has to like like push back against that, but obviously foreshadowing that there's actually something going on there. You
yeah,
also get the moment where uh Hawk and Kidman are talking privately, and
hmm,
Kidman's like, it's been a season since we've been together, let me take care of you. And he's like, nah, I'm good. And you're kind of you're seeing some of the fraying at the edge of this relationship, and it's not this totally loving relationship that Amleth kind of believes it is, and obviously that comes to fruition later on in the story.
yeah,
um you've got I just wanted to touch real quick, Kidman, for all the things we've seen her in recently, is just on a different level here.
yeah.
And this is by far the best she's been in quite some time, I think.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, as Gudrun, especially like once the revelations about her
Yes.
true motivations and status as a character, she's set up, in young Amleth's mind as like this damsel in distress taken by the murderous uncle and made the new bride. Then you actually realize from Gudrun's own mouth that's not what's going on. And that's an amazing scene when that
Oh yeah.
happens, and Amleth's mind is blown, honestly. But you totally best thing Kidman's done in long ass time, honestly.
Yeah, that scene, I don't know if she'll get a nomination for this, but I think if there's even consideration for her as a supporting actress, that would be the scene, because the way that she kind of goes from like surprise to uh like frustration to like anger about the way that Hawk used to treat her, and then that like weird moment where she kisses him and talks about like, "Oh, you'll be my king now." Like it's just like so like mind bending and like disgusting and like repulsive, but also like you can't look away. It's totally her just like
Hmm.
firing all cylinders. Super awesome to see. Um, yeah, I thought that was amazing, and as we move forward from the story, obviously Amleth gets away after his father is assassinated. Next time we really see him, he's like this warrior as an
Yep.
adult, and
Raiding in Slavic lands with some group he caught on with. Not really explained.
exactly, and you see him. He seems very just like angry within himself. They have that ritual where he kind of becomes the bear, kind of the spiritual
Mm.
ritual around the fire, and then we really get some maybe one of the best action scenes of the last like I don't know maybe ever on film, like him catching that spear and then climbing the wall, and just like that whole raiding of the village is unbelievable, dude. I mean, what was your reaction to seeing that?
Oh, it's amazing. It's framed too as like one continuous take too,
Yes.
and obviously not a real one take, but like looks so awesome. And because it's so practical too, Skarsgård literally scaling the fort wall with one axe. After, I mean, you said it, he was a huge wow moment, viral moment from the trailer where he catches a thrown spear, a thrown javelin, and then returns it to the sender in their chest. Like it's fucking thrilling shit. And then just watching him just run through the village and cut all these guys down. And they make a point of, Amleth doesn't kill any women or children, but they don't also really hide the fact that tons of people are being thrown into slavery, and there's also sexual violence happening just in the other room. It's not like they're hiding anything either. um
They
but
literally burned a whole house of children
yeah,
after that scene. It was pretty
yeah.
brutal.
Hmm. Yeah, but like it's such a great introduction to like Amleth's like singular focus too, because even like right beforehand when they're like in like the war canoes, uh some of his compatriots just shoot down two guys in a boat with bow and arrow just for fun and laugh about it. And Amleth like looks over and just looks back like he's such like has a one track mind at this point. And I think it's really cool that the way they set it up later with like by chance, where he learns about Fjolnir's new developments, moving over to Iceland and deciding to throw everything he has away, which seems like he had been relatively successful, all things considered, and throws it all away to put himself into slavery, basically to have a chance to get his revenge.
Yeah.
And right before that, of course, we have the Bjork cameo as the Seeress,
Yes.
which is another one of the really memorable uh, hallucination scenes. Bjork, obviously of Iceland, but her first acting role in like what 20 years or so. But super awesome scene too.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I really liked all of the scenes where it pulls some spiritual aspect, and you have the super weird one when he's on Fjolnir's island in Iceland, where uh the guy is like wearing like female garb or like traditional like witch garb with, and then he takes over Defoe's voice
Mm,
as he's like giving the premonition. I thought that was interesting, leading to him going and getting the sword from that Viking
yes,
skeleton king, which is just an amazing scene as well.
that reminded me
Uh,
of the Green Knight ending.
yes,
Honestly,
there are I think a lot of parallels to the Green Knight in this. The this way it was shot, kind of like the graininess in some scenes, the
hmm
lighting in a lot of it, I thought was very similar, and just like the story very similar in terms of epicness too. Um, there's a lot of time spent with him as a slave on this island. We could go into every single scene and probably pick out something we liked, but were there any particular moments when he's like plotting his revenge, kind of following through on some of this that really stood out to you?
sure. Well, in general, I really enjoyed it. Just him and Anya Taylor Joy
Hmm.
talking, her and Skarsgård. Because again, like the older character is good enough for the film, but it could have been better, I think. Um, but Taylor Joy just has such a presence.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've known that for some time. Heck, when she really blew up for anyone who didn't know about her when the Queen's Gambit. She was actually making this movie at that time, and all that Queen's Gambit press she did was when she was shooting this film over in Ireland. Actually, shout out Ireland doing an amazing stand-in for Iceland. It looked just like Iceland. I went to
Totally.
Iceland last year. It looked just like it, but it wasn't actually Iceland. But yeah, in terms of scenes, I think a lot of the Olga Amleth scenes, like when they're like at the farm and kind of like stealing time to talk and stuff like that. Along those lines, once like their plan is kind of in motion and like I believe the way it went was Olga like drugged a lot of like the guards. That's how that went, and they started like hallucinating, and some of them started killing themselves. And just once Amleth starts terrorizing everyone as like this demon of the night, and Fjolnir and his flock are like super like disturbed about what's going on and like talking about their faith and stuff like that. And then you have a reference to like the growing incursion of Christianity across the world. And it's like, it's the Christians, it's like those that worship a corpse on a tree. Like
Yeah, crazy.
all of that stuff I thought was super thrilling once
Yeah,
Amwith really starts getting after it in the night.
yeah, totally. I think the one that probably stands out most to me is the one where he's like howling. He gets all the dogs to howl, and then the dog like attacks the
Yep.
Queen Gudrun, and uh, Fjolnir has to put him down. It's just like that's the sort of stuff that you just wouldn't expect, but it totally makes sense going back to like the animalistic ritual from the beginning and like how
Hmm.
he's able to connect with like animals in this way. Just as, and you
Yeah.
see him like make eye contact with that like I don't know, wild dog or whatever it is earlier on when he
Yeah. Those
first gets
foxes, I
there.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes back around. I thought that was great. But yeah, I think all that stuff is super cool, and like how it's it's a revenge movie, but not in terms of it's not like John Wick where he's just like going all out, just constantly killing people. And I guess he is, but he's like being way more thoughtful about how he's going about this and like creating this like
Right.
persona of this spirit like you talked about. I thought that was fantastic.
It's a lot of shades of like biblical shit,
Yeah,
like when uh uh what's his name?
Jesus,
Old Testament, Prince of Egypt,
Moses,
Moses, when Moses starts basically terrorizing Ramses and the
right?
Egyptians. It's like just like that,
Yeah,
honestly.
the seven plagues type stuff. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Totally agree. I also really liked the that game they played. I don't know what was going on there, but I thought that was like an interesting moment to like kind of show that Amleth isn't totally this like vengeful monster
Right.
in a sense.
Saves the
That
kid.
yeah, saves the kid, has maybe more feelings for you know his younger brother, talks about how he would take him with him if necessary when things get to it, and then obviously that doesn't turn out to be so, but um the brother really got some jabs on it before Hamlet just
Yeah. So
murked him.
I don't know about you, but like once he enters that room, and you already know like Fjolnir's like giving Gudrun like a sword or something, or a
Mhm.
spear, whatever it was, and like they're like hiding with the little boy. And it's like I was like, man, bro, don't go in there, man. You're gonna get fucking got. And like
Yeah,
he gets cut up
sliced up.
good there. It's like, ah man, you might have had a chance to pull this out if you didn't just
Yeah.
get thoroughly fucked up by Gudrun and the kid.
Yeah. I had the same thought. Also, there it reminded me of another movie that I can't place, but there's another movie where like a person jumps on someone's back and stabs them in the back a lot, but I can't remember which
Is
one
it
it is.
like Arya with the Night King? Is that what
It
you're
might
thinking of?
it might have been maybe. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm gonna be thinking about it till it hits me. But yeah, that certainly I was like, oh no. But then when they go to the gates of hell, I mean, this is
Yeah,
like the most visually stunning shit. They're literally fighting on a volcano, like
as it's erupting.
incredible. Like just the lava lighting the whole way. Like it's all dark, but you get the red glow. And when he
Ashy
get
as
when
fuck.
yeah, when his arms get cut and he's just standing there and you're like, "Oh, he's not going to pull this out." And then he kind of like summons the strength of the kings and just
Yep.
like they both finish each other off at the same time, which is so perfect and beautiful and memorable. Just so memorable.
Right. So yeah, I really love the foreshadowing with that scene too, where like Amleth kind of either says it to himself or he says it in one of the visions where he's like, he will kill or defeat Fjolnir on like a red orange lake or something. He says it. And I was like, after the second time I saw the volcano, I was like, oh, that's the Orange Lake. I
Yeah,
get it now. And yeah, like Gates of Hell, it's like right away. It's like, oh
perfect.
fuck yeah, let's go.
Badass.
And the person in my theater who cheered the first time cheered when you see Fjolnir get decapitated, but he started cheering before you realize that that
Hamlet.
sword was also stuck in
Yeah, in
Hamlet's
Hamlet.
chest, finishing him off.
Uh, I would definitely watch a sequel to this where you see what happens with Olga and the kids. Just want to say if
Right.
Eggers wants to do it, but he definitely has other projects in mind. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's just the unfortunate rub with this film too. Is budget's like 70 to 90 million. This movie did okay for a non-franchise movie, 12 million opening weekend, but it's going to lose money for Universal and Focus Features. Just really disappointing, honestly, because artistically, creatively, critically, it's delivered, but it just it's not going to quote unquote justify its production. And I don't think Eggers cares about all that too much. He kind of put in the work when The Lighthouse was getting raves at Cannes to like get the Northman financed, a movie he had basically kind of already developed with the Icelandic poet Son. So he earned this, right? He got this done, and is he going to get a big budget like this again? Well, not unless it's for something someone wants him to make. And it doesn't sound like Robert Eggers wants to make stuff for other people. He wants to make his own shit. So I guess that's okay. It's still great that he at least got to make this because he just smashed it.
Yeah, totally. I think he'll get more. I mean, box offices are low, but I think people are going to respect this. I assume this will probably at least get some awards buzz come into the year.
I hope so.
Nomination or two. So I think he'll end up at least remaining at this level. But
Hmm.
good shit, man. Northman totally lived up to my expectation. So really really pleased with that. This is why going to the movie theater is great too. Like this is a
Oh yeah,
movie that being in theater is just so different. I bet.
totally.
All right, what do we got for next week, Dave?
So next week we have a new Kaylani album, which is always fun, but just a lot of TV, honestly. New TV, Paramount Plus. You have The Offer, the Miles Teller starring story of the very troubled and eventful creation and production of The Godfather, one of those popular movies of all time. And if you know anything about how that movie got made, there was a lot of drama, and now we're going to see that drama. Also, miniseries starring Andrew Garfield on Hulu, Under the Banner of Heaven, is kicking off. And then we'll also talk about two shows we like quite a bit that are wrapping up: Pachinko on Apple TV Plus and Tokyo Vice on HBO Max.
Lots to talk about next week. Hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. And again, 5 stars on Spotify. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week.